The views on a Breath of Fresh Air podcast reflects the parties involved, and we encourage you all to use it as a conversational tool that will lead to personal studies of your own.
Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Welcome to a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. Here with your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz Gay. As a young person, Christianity can be so foggy, like smoke in the mirrors and so unclear. But we're here to bring you a breath of fresh air.
And Balaam, please. I am willing to pay you handsomely. When is it ever that you have denied such an offer as this? This whole time I have asked you to curse them and you have only blessed them over and over. Is there anything else we can do?
Hold on, Balak. I did tell you I only could speak what God puts in my mouth. You thought that was going to change? I literally said God is not a man that he should change his mind. So, but here's what I'm going to do, Since you have such a nice offer on the board, I would hate to sully my reputation and just leave you high and dry. So, here's what you're going to do. I see you guys got some fine women here in Moab. And I'm sure you could just have your women go down there, strut themselves around, throw some parties, intermingle with the Israelites, get them to worship your gods. This is the key part. Get them to worship your gods. Bow down and worship your gods, and God will be displeased with them. That is the only way you can get a curse on these people. They have to curse themselves.
Balaam, you've done it again.
In this episode, we are exploring Numbers chapters 26 through 30, and we are wrapping up the book of Numbers. We will see who replaced Moses as the Israelite leader and any additional preparations the children of Israel made before heading into the promised land. Be blessed and enjoy. All right, welcome back to another episode of a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. And I haven't done housekeeping items in a while, so let me do that. So, if you like our content, please like and subscribe. For those of you watching on YouTube, those of you listening to the streaming platform, also go on YouTube, like and subscribe if you haven't already. And also share the podcast with a friend and comment down below. It helps us out tremendously to get our podcast out there, and it's absolutely free of charge to you. So we really appreciate the support. And even if you listen to the streaming platform, leave a rating, leave stars, do whatever you can do to just, get the podcast out there. And we really appreciate it greatly. I guess on my whole, inspirational tip I've been on lately, the thing that really stood out to me for this week is the text, be still and know that I'm God. Off the top of my head, I want to say it's in Isaiah, but I can't remember. As I Google, because I want to say the right text.
Psalms 46.
Bing, Psalms.
Verse 10.
Perfect. So Psalms 46, verse 10, be still, know that I'm God. And the reason why it just really stood out to me because for the past few weeks, I've been so caught up in everything going on. I've been busy mentally, just had a lot of things going on. And even on the times when I should be pausing and just reflecting on God and spending intentional time with him, I wasn't doing that. And I was doing my daily devotions and praying, but it wasn't really, I was treating it more as a checklist item versus a actual, I'm actually spending time and getting to know God and actually trying to understand and hear his will. So, I just want to encourage everyone who's listening to this, whenever you're listening to it, most people listen to it on the weekend, but even if you're listening to it during the week, to just pause at some point and just spend that quiet time alone with God and just try to seek and hear his voice. It can really be powerful. And some of the answers that you're even looking for, he might reveal to you in that quiet silence. So, be still and know that he's God. That's what I got.
Amen to that. Recently I was talking about next steps for me in my 9 to 5. And like sometimes I just think about it and I just be like, I mean, it's a good opportunity, more responsibility, X, Y, Z, but can I do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I look at my job and I'm like, man, the Lord has blessed me to the point where I ain't just make a fool out of myself yet. At some point in time, they can realize I ain't the guy they think I am, right? But that's just me being funny. But at the same time, like, I don't recall one time when I really put it in God's hands to save me or to actually protect me through a task that I feel like was too big for me, specifically related to my job. I remember when I first started, it was a few times when I would have to speak to things that I just didn't know how to speak to. I didn't know the jargon. I didn't know the information. And, sometimes the Lord bless me that I don't have to speak. Sometimes the meeting get canceled. You understand what I'm saying? Sometimes I was able to do so and receive compliments to it. So the text, be still and know that I am God. That's a very fitting, text, and that's something that we all need to do. So, because truthfully, like we add more anxiety and just more on our plate when we try to carry our burden, especially because the Lord, is the one who was here and willing and urging us to give us all of our problems and our cares,
Indeed. So we are picking up this week with Numbers 25, starting up from Numbers chapter 25. So as a recap, last week we talked about Balaam and his oracles. We see how Balak, king of Moab, wanted to curse the Israelites, and he tried to, he shouldn't say he tried. He brought in Balaam. Balaam really wanted to go because Balaam wanted to secure the bag, as we say. Balaam really wanted that monetary gain, as others would say. Balaam was all about the money.
Yep.
At the end of the day, originally that was his purpose. We saw that in his desire to get there, a donkey was trying to save his life, but he was so caught up in just trying to get there and securing this bag that he did not even realize that a donkey was talking to him. So in the midst, the donkey saw the angel of the Lord in his way. Did they call the angel of the Lord? They just call it an angel. Anyway, just for clarity purpose, he saw an angel in his path, and the donkey first went into the fields. Balaam beat the donkey. Then the path went between two buildings, between an alleyway. And then the donkey mashed his foot on the side. He beat the donkey again. And then finally, it was through a very narrow alley where he couldn't turn left or right. The donkey just laid down. And Balaam really put a whooping on this donkey that the donkey...
Donkey say, wait. Hold on, bro.
The donkey had enough and got up and started to speak.
Balaam carry on bar with the donkey. Hey, hold on, I got to step in. I got to hit the jacket.
Have I ever done this to you, bro?
Come on, bro.
What have I done to deserve this?
Going too far now, bro. You're going too far.
Oh, my. So, yeah, the donkey had a lot. And then that's when God opens Balaam's eyes and he saw the angel. And the angel say, bro, me paraphrasing obviously, if this donkey didn't lay down and turn around and mash your foot, you would have done been dead.
I was going to kill you.
It wasn't no maybe. It was like, bro, I came on a mission and that was to kill you. This donkey has saved your life 3 times. And yet you here beating this donkey. So after that, Balaam, he realized that, and so the angel said, okay, you can go, but you only can say what I tell you. So now when Balaam got there to Balak was like, didn't I tell you I'd give you everything? He say, you really can't, and paraphrase, you can't buy what I got to say. I only can say what God puts in my mouth. And so we see 3 times Balaam opened his mouth. Well, the first 2 times God told him, well, hey, this is what you're going to say. And so they were blessings. And the 3rd time we see Balaam said, this is my oracle. And when he was looking over the whole Israelite camp from the top of the mountain, all he do is pronounce blessings and blessings. And then before he left, ironically, the curses were against the Canaanite tribes, the people living in Canaan at the time. And so now we're picking up after that where Balaam left, or did he leave? And
yeah, so in verse 24, it's just like, he gone. The last thing he do, he warned everybody what their fate, all of the Canaanites, what their fate was going to be. And then they sent him off, sent him back home. But it's a bit of context missing in between here, where you have to, I don't know, read between the lines.
It's like read between the lines and fast forward. But even before we get into that, right, there's something we was talking about off pod that I think we should probably get on mic and just try to express and wrestle this concept. The concept of false prophets still being used by God to deliver a message. Because we see Balaam was a false prophet, but he still was being used by God. And to me, I'm gonna give people a different backstory. So where we from, there's a lot of people who claim to be prophets. And I use the word claim, I guess that could be probably rude, but I'm just a bit hesitant because I feel like everyone today, they just try to call and say, oh, I'm prophet this, prophet this.
Like, what have you prophesied?
What have you prophesied? What have you gotten correct? And then there was this verse in Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians, I think it was 5 or 4. Essentially, it's saying, take the good and the bad, but test everything. And to me, especially in today's age, I know I'm personally guilty of just, I'm not even trying to decipher good or bad. If I don't even want to hear what you're saying in this context, I think you're just like trying to be like a fake prophet like Balaam. I'm like, why am I even ingesting this information? But we see Balaam, who still had a connection with God, because I think most of these people do have a connection with God, even though their heart might not be in the right place. God still used them to pronounce a blessing on these people. And I don't know, it's interesting for me to think about. Because I'm like, Brian, if you just in it for the money, which a lot of people say, a lot of pastors and prophets and prophetesses and reverends or whatever title they want to go by, or whatever title they're using, some of them in it for the money. But is it saying God still can't use them?
And that's my thing, bro. So Balaam, right? We can tend to call him a false prophet, right? But I don't think the Bible has any evidence that this guy falsely prophesied anything. He's just a prophet who uses powers not for good. You understand what I'm saying? At the end of the day, he only can do this, but through the scope of what the Lord allows him to do. But it's how it's the purpose behind what he's using this for, which is why we quick to call him a false prophet, or a more palatable term, a prophet for hire. You're not constrained, or you're not motivated by the things of God, but you're motivated by money. And I can understand people listening right now saying, how do we get that from Balaam? This chapter right here, chapter 25, is definitely gonna be able to paint gonna be able to match the two. So in that Thessalonians chapter, we only stumbled across it because I was trying to tell you the Bible say, "Show away the very appearance of evil," right? And the conversation about that we had was saying that it's just funny how sometimes we use these one-off texts without context. So we actually read what they were talking about, and they were talking about how you shouldn't be so quick to just rule out something. You understand what I'm saying? Or to accept something, but test everything. But then I asked the question, if it looked like a duck, basically, if it looked like you ain't making no sense, and you acting, and I've known you not to make sense, how then could you possibly make sense now? Why should I test this, or why can't I just rule this out? You know? And then I go back to a text that I've used here before. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, if I don't have love, I'm a sounding brass and a tinkling cymbals. And that text, what I interpret that as to say is like, you could possibly speak with the intelligence of angels. You could prophesy, you could baptize, you could do all of these things and not have love. And if you're doing that, you just basically making noise is what the text trying to say. But I'm asking, how is that physically possible? How can I be a unit of God or an instrument of God but not have the love factor? Is that possible? Based on that text, I definitely see that is possible. But if you need it more than a text, we can show you a human being in the Bible, documented in the Bible, who was a instrument of God. The way Balak describes Balaam is saying, whoever you bless is blessed, whoever you curse is cursed. This is reminiscent of Abraham, the patriarch of the entire Israelite family. You understand what I'm saying? And so we can see where this guy, he has no problem intermingling with Canaanites. More than likely, he was a Canaanite himself. He has no problem doing work for Canaanites, but he also has no problem to have he also has the audacity to ask God to curse the Israelites who are God's people. If you know the Most High God, to me, it's a no-brainer that you know these are God's people and this ain't happening. But you had the gall to say, we going back multiple times, well, 2 times, to ask God, hey, man, I just run you on your permission if it's cool, you know? Then at the end of all of that, you say, man, I want to die the death of like what the prophets is dying and stuff like that. You get so
the death of the righteous.
You understand? You get so emboldened and just so filled with the Holy Spirit to the point where you just like, man, I love this life. I love this life. And then you go home, as the Bible puts it, in verse 24, in chapter 24. And then somewhere along the line in chapter 25, obviously time had passed, because chapter 25 is addressing an issue that is no longer a new issue, but this is a common issue in the Israelite camp. And so with that being said, we about to get into Balaam a little more. You feel me? Chapter 25, verse 1. While Israel was staying in Shittim, the men began to indulge in sexual immorality with Moabite women, who invited them to sacrifice to their gods. The people ate the sacrificial meat and bowed down before these gods. So Israel yoked themselves to Baal of Peor, and the Lord's anger burned against them. Is this possible? Is this believable? Think about it, bro. They do so much ceremonial stuff as a part of their gods, as a part of their daily everything. Literally everything they have to do was about God. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like how society is so nuanced now and it's just evolving so much. Bro, at the time, y'all police was basically like the Levites and stuff like that, or Moses and stuff. And it ain't even breaking the law. It's breaking God's law type of thing. It wasn't this division of like church and state and all of these laws render unto Caesar with Caesar, unto God's with his gods. No, it was only God's law, right? And you guys are in the land of Canaan, the land that the Lord had promised your ancestors from since Abraham to now. And now y'all intermingling with the Moabite women.
Again. Well, I shouldn't say again. Y'all.
How does that make sense? The reason why I asked, do we think this is possible? Because if we go back 2 books, right? Not 2 chapters. If we go back a couple books now, right? This is some 40 plus years before this exactly happened. Exodus 34 verse 15. This is during the time when the Israelites got the second pair of tablets of the 10 Commandments. Verse 15 says, be careful not to make a treaty with those who live in the land. For when they prostitute themselves to their gods and sacrifice to them, they will invite you and you will eat their sacrifices. And when you choose some of their daughters as wives for your sons, and those daughters prostitute themselves to their gods, they will lead your sons to do the same. And
you know what's funny? How God already prophesied this. I shouldn't even say prophesy. He say, bro, this is
what's gonna happen.
This is what's going to happen.
It didn't even have to be a prophecy. They make it a prophecy. You know, God tell you straight up, hey, but be careful when you even intermingling with these people, bro. Because from you getting a relationship with them, they about to do weird stuff in the name of their gods, and you know what you could do? The same thing. Go right there following after them. You understand what I'm saying? And like, to me, it's like, how we get here? What's the last thing we hear from the Israelites? They just defeated somebody. The last time we did hear from them. Let's see if we go back to chapter, was it 22? No, 21. Arad destroyed the bronze snake. This is the last thing we hear from them, right? The next thing we see Balaam on top of the hill prophesying to them. We ain't heard from the Israelites yet. You understand? We just take a little sidebar to go to see Balaam. Now the next thing we seeing is the Israelites intermingling with the Moabite women and bowing down to their gods. When this happened? This couldn't have happened overnight.
And then the next thing to point out too, remember the king of Moab was Balak. He didn't even want his people to intermingle with them. He was trying to get rid of the Israelites altogether. So all of a sudden now it's a big party, a big feast.
So you're telling me Balak, who just was desperately trying to get these people destroyed, right? Who understood that he could not defeat them, right? That is the leader of the people that is intermarrying and intermingling and influencing the Israelite people.
Yep.
To me, this sounds like if you can't beat them, join them. Right? But what's the purpose of joining them? You know? is it not known that the true power of the Israelite lies in their God? To me, this is parasitic behavior. Can we imply that that some plan was in place that was so sinister that they were like, we cannot beat them?
Man, we ain't even got to. Let's just jump. I mean, let's just go.
Let's get there.
Let's might as well just to put the story together for everyone. Like if we go to Numbers 31, it's Numbers chapter 31. I'm gonna just read it. So now I'm gonna just skip to that part since it's more important until we get there again. But we see essentially it was a talk against the Midianites, and we're gonna get back to that part. But if we go into verse let's just say verse 8. They also killed Balaam, son of Beor, with the sword. The Israelites captured the Midianite women and children and took all the Midianite herds. Anyway, so let me go back to the part. So verse 16, they were the ones who followed Balaam's advice and were the means of turning the Israelites away from the Lord in what happened at Peor. So the plague struck the Lord's people. So essentially, when you actually read the full text, maybe we're going to get back here when we get to that part, but so between what Kazi was essentially saying, so between chapters 24 and 25, we see Balaam gave the Moabites and Midianites some advice. And the next thing I want to point out too is while we're here is that you're going to see, when you read this chapter, you see the word Moabite, then you see Midianite. So now we know they were camping outside or right next to the country of Moab or the city of Moab. But the Midianites were a nomadic people. So the Midianites were just, I don't want to say stragglers, but they were nomadic people. So they were traveling through. So at this time, there was a large portion of Midianites also in Moab as well. And so that's why in verse 25, you're going to see, in the beginning, you see a Moabite woman. They were with the Moabite woman, but then you see the story zooms in on a Midianite woman. So that's just extra context when we read through chapter 25. But going back to the point now, so we see before Balaam left, he gave them advice. They were the ones who followed Balaam's advice and were the means of turning the Israelites away from God. So now, chapter 31 gives us the context that we need when we pick back up in chapter 25. So now, how did the Israelites turn away from God? While Israel was staying in Shittim, the man began to indulge in sexual immorality with Moabite women. And going back to Kazi's point, Balaam knew he couldn't do anything to curse the Israelites. He knew he couldn't do it. So now, I shouldn't even say this, but as a way to secure the bag, guess what? I could give you advice. Nothing I can do or you can do can get their God to curse them. The only way their God is going to curse them is if they cause their God to curse them. And how is the best way to get their God to curse them is to reject him and worship other gods. So now this whole strategy you want to do is try to separate yourselves from them. Don't do that. Don't do that. Unfortunately, what is every man's weakness?
Woman. So
now go there, entice them. Go around there, throw a party, invite the men to come in, lure them in, start slowly but surely getting them to worship your gods. Get them drunk. Man's senses get a little weakened when they under the influence of alcohol, unfortunately. And then, lure them in to start worshiping gods. And trust me, this is like an inside man. It's like the best person tell you how to rob a bank or how to rob a store is the people who work there. So Balaam was saying, I know the only way to get God to curse them, and the best way to get God to curse them is have them worship other gods.
That's why I think Balaam so brazen, bro. See, Balaam wasn't a Hebrew.
He gave them the cheat code.
Right, but this is what I'm saying. Balaam wasn't there when God gave him all this information. Balaam was in touch with God, bro. Balaam understands God, bro. Balaam understands the word.
Remember he said, this is the Lord, my God.
Exactly. So my thing is, you know all the stuff that God don't want them to do without even being a part of them. So you knew for a fact God wasn't going to curse them to begin with. Because you understand God. You understand his relationship to them. But this guy, he was motivated because more than likely money, but maybe political gain or whatever. But it was something about this proposition from the people, from the Moabite leaders that made Balaam like, bro, I have to do this by all means. Because what do? He gone about and do what God allow him to do, which is pronounce blessings. But after all that, he was like, hey, but look here. Okay, bro, I still get, don't worry, bro. I still, on paper, I had to say what God gave me to say.
I couldn't do anything about that.
Nah.
Now off the books.
All right, now off the record. Off the record, bro. I can let you know the only way how y'all could defeat them, and it was to some degree effective way, but it didn't give them the desired result, but it was effective. You understand what I'm saying? And so now this poses the question once again: if this is the type of heart Balaam have, how could he have prophesied? You understand what I'm saying? To me, it goes to the idea that you have to take up your cross and walk daily. You understand? Our righteousness is filthy rags. So even the person who you looking at and you like, bro, this person really working for God, bro, as a sinful being, bro, you ain't really doing nothing, bro. You ain't doing nothing, bro. It's only because of faith that God allowing us to have a possibility of going to heaven or to serve him or to please him or anything like that. You understand what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, we still fallible beings. At the end of the day, and we still have to constantly work on ourselves. So this type of thing, bro, it really opened my mind to how we kind of give people too much credit, meaning we assume that because somebody did a work for God or did a good deed, that this person's heart is of gold and that they can't fall or they can't falter in any type of way.
I think I was an opposite. I just be like, I just want to give people no credit. Sometimes I was like,
But I feel like personally, I feel like that's the safer way to go about it, because we can see where someone who could be, bro, this person, Balaam, you was a minister of the Lord, bro. You was prophesying literally in his name, right? But you still was shiesty. You remember Jesus say, some people could be like, Lord, we was prophesying, but he said, I don't know you. How is that possible, bro? These certain, see, I never read the book of Numbers in depth. So when I read in the New Testament and I say it, but how, when Jesus said stuff like this, I'm like, hold on, Jesus. How someone could honestly say they prophesy, they preach and teach in your name, but then you don't know them? How is that possible? I've seen where it is possible. I've seen that the two do not equate. Just because me and you just do this podcast, that don't mean we living right. That don't mean we ain't drowning in sin. That don't mean our life ain't getting further and further away from Christ just because we do this. And I go back to justification by works. You ain't working your way into heaven. So just because you prophesying and doing all this stuff for Jesus, that don't mean you get a short ticket into heaven. But it's about faith. You understand what I'm saying? And so we see, all right. And just to move on with the story. In verse 4, the Lord said to Moses, take all the leaders of these people, kill them and expose them in broad daylight before the Lord, so that the Lord's fierce anger may turn away from Israel. So Moses said to Israel's judges, each of you must put to death those of your people who have yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor. Then an Israelite man brought into the camp a Midianite woman right before the eyes of Moses and the assembly of Israel, while they were weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting.
So now let me...
Boy, horrible timing.
So now, the next thing would get me to, because if you read down, right, you see who it is. So this guy was a leader of one of the Simeonite families. He was a leader of one of the families, right?
Oh.
So his name was Zimri. So Zimri was the leader of one of the Simeonite families, and he walks in front of the whole assembly while they are weeping. Now, as a leader, you know what you're doing is wrong. And not to condone your wrongness, but why are you so emboldened and so brazen to walk in front of the whole assembly in doing your wrong?
To me, that just go to show how normalized this was, bro. Because to me, what I get from it is now they putting an end to this. So this is the first time an end is being put to it. So he ain't get the memo yet. I'm like,
was he wound up? Because I'm like, everyone else get the memo. Like, yeah, but we stopping, bro. Eh? He was around the box side of the tent or something.
He was with the Midianites when everybody was getting the story. He missed the whole speech. He don't even know why they crying. You understand? That's what I get from it. No lie. Every time I read it, even when I read Ellen White's commentary on it, I automatically assume when Moses was talking about this, when God was talking to Moses, he was away with the Midianites, find his girl. Now it's time to come home. Now the speech already over, and he just walking through like everything normal. He ain't even know what's going on. You know what I mean?
So now we see, and this next part also funny. So now, when Phineas,
Pretty gangster.
Yeah, when Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw this, he left the assembly, took a spear in his hand, and followed the Israelite to the tent. So now, I don't know about you, but if anyone's stalking me and I don't really know them like that, I already kind of, hey, what you doing? What you doing?
First of all, everyone should know Phineas, right? But bro, if someone following you with a spear, I can't see what good is going to come from that.
The only way this makes sense, if Phineas saw them from a distance, he's like, wait, what y'all doing? Oh, you taking off? Okay, cool. Let me grab this spear. And your boy was so locked in on one thing that he wasn't really checking who was running, because clearly he didn't check. He's like, oh, no, the whole town over there, we just gone.
I don't think he thought there was any penalty for this, bro. Because if you're a leader doing this, bro, in front of everyone, that should show you probably ain't the only leader, or this a pretty normalized thing to the point where we can do this in broad day. You understand what I'm saying?
So now we see he drove the spear through the both of them, through the Israelite and into the woman's body, which would indicate your boy was on top of her. Then the plague against the Israelites stopped, but those who died numbered 24,000. So in the book of Numbers, we see a lot of Israelites have perished.
A lot of Israelites didn't make it.
But still, Phineas, though, my boy,
that was gangster.
He had to do it to the girl was kind of she wasn't innocent though, but she knew what she was doing.
My thing is, we didn't know if he was can get to worshiping the Midianite gods.
I mean, they was worshiping the Midianite gods, clearly.
Yeah,
that's the whole purpose of the Midianite and Moabite woman.
That's why I said she ain't innocent.
That's why I saying she ain't innocent. she know what she was doing, but
No, bro.
Mercy. The Lord said to Moses, Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, has turned my anger away from the Israelites. For he was as zealous as I am for my honor among them, so that my zeal I did not put an end to them. Therefore, tell them I am making a covenant of peace with him. He and his descendants will have a covenant of lasting priesthood, because he was zealous for the honor of his God and the atonement for the Israelites. The name of the Israelite who was killed with the Midianite woman, and we see she was a Midianite woman again, so she wasn't actually Moabite, she was actually Midianite, was Zimri, son of Salu, the leader of the Simeonite family. And the name of the Midianite woman who was put to death was Cosbi, daughter of Zur, the tribal chief of the Midianite family. Depends on some versions. I think they also call her the princess of one of the Midianite families too.
It's a big name too.
So she was high up there. So now we see the Lord told Moses, treat the Midianites as enemies now, because now we see the beginning, it was the Moabites.
But you know how hard it is to kill a pretty girl, bro? Like, I know that's like off.
That's where your mind going, bro?
I don't think I'd have the heart to do that, bro. Like, for God, of course I'd do it, though.
I was going to say, remember? Remember when we had that Bible study one time, and one of our friends, she was like, I was like, would you kill me? She's like, oh yeah, for God?
Yeah, she didn't think too hard for that.
No.
She didn't think too hard for that.
So I'm like, wait, for God? Yeah. Hey, God could make a career the next one. That's clearly what Phineas thought.
Oh, bro, true Phineas ended up being zealous for God's honor.
So they say, treat the Midianites as enemies and kill them, because they treated you as enemies when they deceived you in an affair at Peor, and their sister Cosbi, the daughter of the Midianite leader, the woman who was killed when the plague came as a result. So now, go for it.
It's a known thing that this was a scandal they was trying to accomplish among the Israelites.
Yeah, they knew they was up to the task.
And this would initiate it, like, all right, y'all got to get killed now, because truthfully, the Israelites didn't even look like they was aggressively trying to kill the Moabites. They was just parked outside of their city. You understand? Granted, it was only probably a matter of time, but to me, this wasn't like a week or a month go by and everybody dating. I think that things could have evolved that quickly. You understand? Because this became a normal thing, super normal thing.
It was parked there for a while, man.
Yeah.
And then we see going in Numbers 26. It was a second census. So I'm just reading the first part. After the plague of the Lord said to Moses and Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, take a census of the whole Israelite community by families, all those 20 years old or more who are able to serve in the army of Israel. So the plains of Moab, So on the plains of Moab by the Jordan, across from Jericho, Moses and Eleazar the priest spoke with them and said, take a census of the men 20 years old or more, as the Lord commands. And so the importance of this, right? So we see when Numbers started off, well, at the beginning of Numbers, relatively close to the beginning, there was a census. And the census was the number of the tribes coming out who were ready to go into the promised land, Canaan. Now we know that generation lacked faith. And so everyone 20 years or older who didn't believe, they died in the desert in the 40 years. So now we see, like we said in the previous episode, this is at the end of the 40 years. They're getting ready to go back. So now let's see who's left. Well, let's see who's here now. So you're going to see a lot of these people, well, almost all these people are the children of the ones who just died. So now this is the new generation that's about to go into the land of Canaan, about to go into the promised land. So they're doing another census.
Yep. It's like, the Lord promised that generation was going to die. But then at the same time, a lot of them Israelites do a lot of stuff for God to kill them anyway. There's probably some young people.
Some other people who died. Yeah. Call a rebellion. The ones who get bite by the snakes and die.
They just had a plague just now.
Next 24,000. But it's 24,000. But I mean, granted, right now we're in the age of COVID. So the last 2 years, like the numbers of people who died.
See, to me, it's different when you're outside and you're around people.
That's what I'm saying too. It's like, but I'm like, I'm like 24,000 dead and like, however long this plague lasts, the plague don't even sound like it lasts like that long. Because remember, the snake one wasn't even, and the next one too, when the corridors rebellion too, like they was just, it was a plague time.
Yeah, for sure.
Quick.
So I mean, it's only fitting that you get a new census because ain't no telling how much people around, but you can see it's still a comparable number in the 600,000s. Around there. 601,730 was all the total number of men. That doesn't count children, and that's all the men over. It doesn't count children and women. So all the Levites. And the Levites were 23,000 male. So altogether, that's 624,730 males over 20. So that's a lot of males. And again, safe estimate, just times that by 3. And that's how much body is roughly.
That's just, and that ain't accounting outsiders. That ain't accounting, anyway. Yeah. A lot of people.
Yeah, truthfully.
So that's a lot of them. So now, granted, you can read that for yourself. So that was just a synopsis of Numbers 26. So now going on to Numbers 27, the daughters of Zelophehad, son of Hefer, the son of Gilead, the son of Micah, the son of Manasseh, belong to the clans of Manasseh, son of Joseph. If you wanted to trace his lineage, just sure got it.
Yep.
The names of the daughters were Mala,
Noah.
That get me off guard. Hogla, Milcah, and Tirzah. That Noah wasn't expecting. Mm-hmm. They approached the entrance of the tent of meeting and stood before Moses, Eleazar, the priest, the leaders, and the whole assembly, and said, "Our father died in the desert. He was not among Korah's followers who banded together against the Lord, but he died."
Just so you know.
Yeah. But he died for his own sin and left no sons. Why should our father name disappear from his clan because he'd have no son? Give us property among our father's relatives. So Moses brought their case before the Lord, and the Lord said to them, "What Zelophehad's daughters are saying is right. You must certainly give them property as an inheritance among their father's relatives and turn their father's inheritance over to them. Say to the Israelites, if a man dies and leaves no son, turn his inheritance over to his daughter. If he has no daughter, give his inheritance to his brothers. If he has no brothers, give his inheritance to his father's brothers. If his father had no brothers, give his inheritance to the nearest relative in his clan, that he may possess it. This is to be a legal requirement for Israelites, as the Lord commanded Moses." So we see that just like an inheritance, like what's to happen if someone dies and, they didn't have any sons, all they had is daughters, and essentially show the line of a will.
Next of kin, yeah.
Yeah, next of kin. That's the word I was looking for. It just wasn't coming to me. And then we see, picking up in Numbers 27, verse 12, then the Lord said to Moses, go up to the mountain in the Abraham range and see the land I have given to the Israelites. After you have seen it, you too will be gathered to your people as your brother Aaron was, when the community rebelled at the waters of the desert of Zin. Both of you disobeyed my command to honor me as holy before their eyes. These were the waters of Meribah Kadesh in the desert of Zin. Moses said to the Lord, may the Lord of the God of spirits of all mankind appoint a man over this community to go out and come in before them, one who will lead them out and bring them in. So the Lord's people will not be like sheep without a shepherd. So the Lord said to Moses, take Joshua, son of Nun, a man in whom is the Spirit, and lay your hand upon him. He will have him stand before Eleazar the priest and the entire assembly and commission him in their presence. Give him some of your authority so the whole Israelite community will obey him. He is to stand before Eleazar the priest, who will obtain decisions for him by inquiring of the before the Lord. At his command, he and the entire community of Israelites will go out, and as they command, they will come in. Moses did as the Lord commanded him. He took Joshua and had him stand before Eleazar the priest and the whole assembly. Then he laid his hands on him and commissioned him, as the Lord instructed through Moses. So we see Joshua, the guy who we've pointed out has always been around, was next in line. Next in line to bear the burden or to have the privilege, depends on who you ask, of leading the Israelite people into the land of Canaan.
Yep. Promised land.
Yeah, which is so funny because we're going to see like this happen again when you were supposed to be the person to do something, but because of a mishap, someone else had to do it for you. Yep. Your successor had to do it for you. But it's to me, Joshua's like the most fitting one. I don't know if the Bible wrote that in retrospect, knowing that, okay, yeah, Joshua's going to be the one to lead it. But we see Joshua was there with Moses on the mountain. Joshua was there with Moses in the tent. Joshua was the one leading the Israelites in the army, like, in the battle. Like, Joshua had been there through and was right by his side by very pivotal moments that, in my mind, since Aaron already died, who else would I choose?
True.
And Aaron was still a little shaky in my mind because Aaron was bent under pressure.
And then y'all people who is leaders, like the Simeonite leader who want to take y'all's in. But like I just question.
Who don't even want a Midianite? Who don't even want an Israelite? He want a little Midianite. He want a Midianite woman. My word.
All of these people in this camp. Mm-hmm. North of 1 million people, bro. You can't find
Easily.
a gal. You can't find a gal.
Easily.
But
apparently not.
I guess they wanted. I don't know if I should say that, but I guess they wanted to preserve the honor of their. Ain't no justification. Let me stop freaking out, Joe.
Just want something different.
This was being wild, bro.
Yeah. They just wanted something different.
Yeah.
Something provocative.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is though, like we've seen during this journey over these past 3 books, well, it's been leaders who have done sketchy things. You understand what I'm saying? Korah probably was the most brazen, and probably got the most bizarre death of them all. The earth came and ate him and his family up. You understand what I'm saying? But yeah, so I mean, luckily, we ain't have no evidence of Joshua being wild or just going crazy at no point in time. And you know, Joshua's a pretty cool dude, man. Like everything you hear about Joshua in the books to come, like you know, he do his thing. You understand what I'm saying? Fearless leader type of situation. So it's clear that the end is near for Moses. You know, so he has to pick his successor. And it's funny because they just had to do the census because Moses' entire generation is probably dead, like, for the most part. Like, it's probably like 5% or less of them still around. And you know your expiration date coming. Because you know God promised you all, if you was this age or older, it's a wrap for you. He tell Moses specifically, you ain't gonna be there. And he just reminded him that just now in this chapter. So you understand? So he know his time coming. So.
God is not a man that he should lie.
Nope.
He didn't tell you.
That's word to Balaam.
He didn't tell you. You ain't gonna make it in this guy. Don't mind, because Aaron been dead a little while now. Mm-hmm. You still around, but
not for long, Bucko.
Your days are numbered.
Sorry.
Mercy. So in chapters 20 and through 29, we revisit some of the same concepts that we talked about in Exodus and Leviticus. We talk about Sabbath offerings, monthly offerings, the Passover, the Feast of Weeks, the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, the Feast of Tabernacles. So definitely check out our episode on Leviticus, and also you could read those for yourselves. I don't think, just in the essence of time, we're not going to go that deep into it.
Yeah, they're pretty straightforward.
So, I mean, I'm going to pick up from anything verse 31 to go over, and when we can jump to chapter 31.
I personally just want to go to 31 because I think these are straightforward. Chapter 30 is pretty straightforward too.
Yeah, it just goes over vows again. Like, if keep your word.
Like, let me just give.
Don't lie.
Yeah, exactly. Just an example: when a man makes a vow to the Lord or takes an oath to obligate himself by a pledge, he must not break his word, but must do everything he said. You understand what I'm saying? That's just an example of one. Like, they have multiple different examples, and is Moses have to say this now because his time, his time ain't much longer. So we can see where Moses transitioning into much more stories about Moses, but it's really just instruction. And a lot of the things are being reiterated because this is a completely new generation. Everyone you spend all this time teaching to and instilling stuff, these guys probably dead. And a lot of the young people, they might have been doing this all their life, but they don't know why. So it's time to give you all an in-depth thing so that y'all may be able to be a fully functional community after Moses' passing,
So now in chapter 31, the Lord said to Moses, take vengeance on the Midianites for the Israelites. After that, you will be gathered to your people. So Moses said to the people, arm some of your men to go to war against the Midianites and carry out the Lord's vengeance on them. Send into battle 1,000 men from each of the tribes of Israel. So 12,000 men armed for battle, 1,000 from each tribe, were supplied from the clans of Israel. Moses sent them into battle, 1,000 from each tribe, along with Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the priest, who took with him articles from the sanctuary and the trumpets for signaling.
I still laughing at Phineas because he wasn't even a soldier, bro.
That's what I'm saying, because I was going to say, the priests weren't even supposed to be at war. But Phineas had so much zeal.
Yeah, boy.
Well, it's like, we can let Phineas go. We can let Phineas go.
No, but I saying he wasn't even a soldier, but he was nice with the spell.
But like you say, some people, just because you're in a certain tribe doesn't mean like you ain't can still be doing these certain things.
Exactly, that means you wasn't built like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he might just be in the back tent. Well, not the back tent, because he couldn't really be in the back tent, but he might be in the courtyard with a little spear. I just imagine him practicing.
It is leisure.
Just twirling the spear around.
He probably couldn't wait to use that spear, bro.
It's not every day I get to use this.
Paul Cosby and Zuri or whatever your boy there, bro.
Just a girl, but yeah.
Yeah.
Cosby didn't know what she had coming to her that day.
Oh, Lord.
She said, I've been in this camp many times.
Right.
Little did she know, today was the last time. And not in a good way either.
No, Jay.
Oh, my. So Moses said Moses already said that. They fought against Midian as the Lord commanded Moses and killed every man. Among their victims was
Zur, Hur, and Reba.
The 5 kings of Midian. They also killed Balaam, son of Beor, with the sword. The Israelites captured the Midianite women and took their children and took all the Midianite herds, flocks, and goods as plunder. They burned all the towns where the Midianites had settled, as well as all their camps. They took all the plunder and spoils, including the people and animals. They brought the captive spoils and plunder to Moses and Eleazar the priest and the Israelite assembly at their camp on the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. Moses, Eleazar the priest, and all the leaders of the community went to meet them outside the camp. Moses was angry with the officers of the army, the commanders of thousands and the commanders of hundreds who returned from battle. Have you allowed all the women to live? He asked them. They were the ones who followed Balaam's advice and were the means of turning the Israelites away from the Lord in what happened at Peor, so that the plague struck the Lord's people. Now kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man. So now we're seeing, God said, kill everybody. Kill them. But now the men were like, we're not.
Too fine to kill Dread.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So they say, we just kill all the guys.
But it's like, bro, the guys ain't even really do nothing, bro.
Some would argue they victims because y'all take all their women.
Exactly. I mean, the guys is chilling. They was probably in on it and enticing them too. But it's the women who executed the plan. Mm-hmm. So what would be the point of saving the women?
Yeah. But I was like, okay, you know what? Anyway. Anybody who slept with a man, just kill him. And now you can have the virgins. You can marry them, I guess, or have them for yourselves. However you guys want.
Don't prostitute yourselves to their gods, man. Let them submit to your gods.
And so now we see, going back to the Levitical laws, all of you have killed anyone or touched anyone who was killed must stay outside the camp for 7 days. On the third and seventh day, you must purify yourselves and your captives. Purify every garment as well as everything made of leather, goat hair, or wood. Because, I mean, you'd be in a state of impurity, so they weren't really supposed to come in the camp. Then Eleazar, the priest, said to the soldiers who had gone into battle, "This is the requirement of the law that God gave Moses. Gold, silver, bronze, iron, tin, and lead, and anything else that can withstand fire must be put through fire, and it will be clean, but it must also be purified with water of cleansing. And whatever cannot withstand the fire must be put through the water. On the seventh day, wash your clothes, and you will be clean. Then you may come into the camp." So we see they had to go through the purification process to come back inside the camp because they were on a killing spree. And like I said, you can't be impure. So now dividing the spoils, the Lord said to Moses, "You and Eleazar, the priest and the family heads of the community are to count all the people and animals that were captured. Divide the spoils between the soldiers who took part in the community, in the battle, and the rest of the community. For the soldiers who fought in the battle, set apart as tribute for the Lord, one of every 500, whether persons, cattle, donkeys, sheep, or goats. Take this tribute from their half of the share and give it to Eleazar the priest as the Lord's part. From the Israelites' half, select one out of every 50, whether persons, cattle, donkeys, sheep, goats, and other animals. Give them to the Levites, who are responsible for the care of the tabernacle." So Moses and Eleazar, the priest of the Lord, command. The plunder remaining from the spoils the soldiers took. So, anyway, before we do it, the plunders was 675,000 sheep, 72,000 cattle, 61,000 donkeys, and 32,000 women who had never slept with a man. The half of those share of those who fought in the battle was 337,500 sheep, of which was tribute to the Lord was 675, 36,000 cattle, of which was tribute was 72, 30,500 donkeys, of 61 of those was tribute, and 16,000 people, and tribute was 32. So in today's day, if you were to just convert, and it was weird to convert sheep into money, but I mean, it's not really that weird. Each sheep has a price. So the average going rate of sheep is about $200. That's a low-end sheep. For a cow, $2,000. That's a low-end cow, because I know people who sell cows for like $5,000. And
that's what my people in Alabama tell me. $5,000 for a cow. But
conservative. It's a small cow might be sickly like the ones Laban had. So you won't pay top dollar for that. You know what I'm saying? So little $2,000 for a cow. And a donkey could go anywhere from between like $1,000 to $1,500. This over like $500 million.
It's a whole city.
That's over $500 million.
It's like you spoil a whole country or a whole city, bro. That's like
exactly. I just want to paint a picture like people seeing sheep and cattle and stuff, but in today's day, that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And back in that day, it was even more money. Oh. And just like Kaz is saying, all reality, think what they just did. They just ran through an entire city. Mm-hmm. So naturally there's a lot of resources.
Big bucks in that. You know what I mean?
But I just want to point how much of a monetary value.
And that ain't a factor in gold and stuff, right?
That's just.
No, because they ain't calculate, they ain't give us how much gold and stuff. Mm-hmm. They just throw it in the fire to purify it.
Mm-hmm. So they did well for themselves.
Yeah.
But who the Lord bless, no man can curse, as we can see.
Exactly.
As we can see, so yeah, but that's just a lot. I just want to put that in context for people. So Moses gave the tribute to Eleazar, the priest, as the Lord's part, and the Lord commanded Moses, the half belonged to the Israelites, from which set apart from the fighting man, the community's half, which was, exactly the half of the tribute. So we see 337,500 sheep, 36,000 cattle, 30,500 donkeys, and 16,000 people. From the Israelites' half, Moses selected one out of every 50 persons and animals as the Lord commanded him, and gave them to the Levites, who were responsible for the care of the Lord's tabernacle. Then the officers who were over the units in the army of the commanders in thousands and commanders of hundreds went to Moses and said to him, "Your servants have counted the soldiers under your command. Not one is missing. So we have brought as an offering to the Lord the gold articles each of us has acquired, armlets, bracelets, signet rings, earrings, and necklaces, to make atonement for ourselves before the Lord." So like Kazi alluded to, just think about all the gold and stuff they got. We bringing you the rings, we bringing you the bracelets, we bringing you the armlets. Like, we bringing you everything. Moses and Eleazar, the priest, accepted from them the gold, all the crafted articles. Oh, and they did say the gold weighed 16,750 shekels. And a shekel is about 420 pounds.
Wow.
That's a lot of gold.
Yeah, that's a lot of gold.
That's a lot of gold. Or that weight is 420. Either way, 420 pounds of gold is a lot of gold. Because, I mean, shoot, you wear like a chain, a real gold chain, and you're like, this got some weight to it.
Less than an ounce. You understand what I'm saying? Like, well, it might be an ounce. You feel me? Like, change people just be wearing this, don't be pounds and things. You feel me?
Exactly. So that's a lot of weight. That's a lot of weight. Anyway, so we see that this plunder was a lot. I think that's really what I was just trying to get to. This plunder was a lot. So Moses and Israel accepted the gold. And the commanders from hundreds and thousands brought it into the tent of meeting as a memorial for the Israelites before the Lord. So, and then chapter 32, the Transjordan tribes. Now at this point, we're starting to see some of the first tribes actually start to settle down, because some of them say, you know what, we're not even going to cross the Jordan. We're already technically in Canaan. Just going to start setting up shop. So we see the Reubenites and the Gadites, who had very large herds and flocks, saw that the lands near Jazer and Gilead, Gilead, yes, yeah, thanks, man, were suitable for livestock. So they came to Moses and Eleazar, the priests, and to the leaders of the community and said, Ataroth, Dibon, Jazer, Namrath, Hezbon, Eliah, Sebam, Nebu, and beyond, the land of the Lord subdued before the people are suitable for livestock, and your servants have livestock.
It's suitable for livestock. We have livestock.
It just shows these people were really humans, man. Yeah. Like, the land good for livestock. We have livestock. So, naturally, if we have found favor in your eyes, that's the line, boy. If we have found favor in your eyes, let this land be given to your servants as possession. Do not make us come across this. They say, but it's just kind of funny too. It's almost like, bro, we've had enough with y'all.
Don't make us go past Jordan, man, bro.
We're not gonna cross this river. We tired of being with everyone.
Truthfully, we have everything we need in the land. So, if we have found favor, of course.
Of course.
Let's set and go.
So Moses said to the Gadites, so the descendants of Gad and descendants of Reuben, shall your countrymen go to war while you sit here? Which is very good, because Moses is like, bro, across the Jordan, we got to conquer the rest of Canaan. Like, let's say, we just roll over and we're ready to see, for those of you who know the story, ready to see they are next to the Jordan River, across from the land of Jericho. So, like, Moses like, so y'all gonna stay here while they gotta go over there and literally be in war for a while. A good long while.
Still a lot of fighting left to go.
Hey, we didn't even start fighting yet, really and truly.
Yep.
Why do you discourage the Israelites from going over into the land the Lord has given them? This is what your fathers did when I sent them to Kadesh Barnea to take over the land. After they went up to the valley of Eshcol, then viewed the land, they discouraged the Israelites from entering the land the Lord had given them. The Lord's anger was aroused that day, and he swore the oath, because they have not followed me wholeheartedly. Not one of the men 20 years or older. I can see Moses. I actually laying on this ark. I can see why he's kind of like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, like why you only thinking about yourself right now?
We will see the land, I promise. So he's saying, no one who came out of Egypt will see the land, I promise, an oath to Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob. No one except Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kizanite, and Joshua, son of Nun, for they followed the Lord wholeheartedly. The Lord's anger burned against Israel and made them wander in the desert for 40 years until the generation of those who had done evil in his sight was gone. And here you are, a brood of sinners, standing in the place of your fathers and making the Lord even more angry with Israel. If you turn away from following him, he will again leave all the people in the desert, and you will be the cause of their destruction.
But think about it though. If God with them, why y'all want to stop for you though? I understand the land look good, right? Because I was with them until Moses said that, and I just think about it like, yeah, bro, I mean, I want to think y'all can survive here by yourselves without God. You feel me? But God traveling across the Jordan.
That's a valid point. But now we see, here's their rebuttal. We would like to build pens here for our livestock and cities for our women and children. But we are ready to arm ourselves and go ahead of the Israelites until we have brought them their place. Meanwhile, our women and children will live in a fortified city for protection from the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our homes until every Israelite has received his inheritance. We will not receive any inheritance with them on the other side of the Jordan, because our inheritance has come to us on the east side of the Jordan. That's noble.
Yeah, I mean, put it that way.
That's noble. I mean,
can't even be mad. But like to me, it just go to show like how much time in between their journey. It used to be, because they trying to build a whole city before they cross.
Yeah.
A fortified city.
Yeah. Then Moses said to them, if you will do this, if you will arm yourselves before the Lord for battle, and if all you will go armed over the Jordan before the Lord until he has driven his enemies out before him, then when the land is subdued before the Lord, you may return and be free from your obligation to the Lord and to Israel. And this land will be your possession before the Lord.
But hold on. When I read stuff like this, it just be like, bro, you ain't gonna apologize. You ain't gonna apologize for you call him a brood of sinners. Just
they are
unless him chastising them make them say, this what the plan could be from here.
Let's actually think about this.
Yeah, because if that was your plan all along, but y'all just conveniently forgot to mention that, then y'all been misdiagnosed as a brood of sinners. You know what I mean?
But they are sinners though.
Yeah, but Moses...
I know.
Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? Moses saying it's a sinful act. Why y'all trying to do this?
But if you fail to do this, you will be sinning against the Lord, and you may be sure that your sin will find you. Or build your cities for your women and children, and pens for your flocks, but do what you have promised. The Gadites and Reubenites said to Moses, we, your servants, will do as our Lord commands. Our children and wives, our flocks and herds will remain here in the cities of Gilead. But your servants, every man armed for battle, will cross over to fight before the Lord, just as our Lord says. Then Moses gave orders about them to Eleazar the priest and Joshua son of Nun, and to the family heads of the Israelite tribes. He said to them, the Gadites, the Reubenites, every man armed for battle, cross over the Jordan with you before the Lord. Then when the land is subdued before you, give them the land of Gilead as their possession. But if they do not cross over with you armed, they must accept their possession with you in Canaan. They must accept their possession with you in Canaan. The Gadites and Reubenites answered, your servants will do what the Lord has said. We will cross over before Canaan into Canaan armed, but the property we inherited will be on this side of the Jordan. Then Moses gave to the Gadites, the Reubenites, and the half of tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Shihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of the Bashan, the whole land with its cities and the territory around them. The Gadites built up Dibon, Atareth, I don't know why I was fumbling with that word. I was like, interesting. Atarath, Zob, Shofan, Jazer, Jog, Biha, Beth, Nimrah, and Beth Horon as fortified. They had a lot of time and built pens for their flocks. And the Reubenites built Heshbon, Eliah, and Kerithaim, as well as Nebo and Baal Meon. These names were changed, and Sibma, they gave names to the cities they were built. The descendants of Machir, Manasseh, went to Gilead, captured it, and drove out the Amorites who were there. So Moses gave Gilead to the Machirites, the descendants of Manasseh, and they settled there. Jair, the descendant of Manasseh, captured their settlements and called them Havoth Jair, and Nobah captured Kenath and its surrounding settlements and called it Nobath after himself. That was cocky. And so we get in chapter 23, 33, my bad, is essentially the stages of from Egypt to where they are now. So it's literally the travel log. And we say the next thing for Numbers was, travel through the desert, essentially. So we see that's essentially a detailed travel log of they went from here to here, they camped here, at here, then they left there and camped here, then they left there and camped here. So just a travel log. There's nothing real special about that, but for those history nerds, you actually can, like people like me, actually go and say, oh, they went from here to here. Oh, so that's why this made sense. Okay, but you got a detailed travel log there. Chapter 34, the boundaries of Canaan. So again, what was important about this chapter? What stood out for me from this chapter? It was just mostly them saying, yeah, we're in the boundaries of Canaan. When the Lord said to Moses, command the Israelites and say to them, when you enter the land of Canaan, the land will be allotted to you as an inheritance. We'll have those boundaries. So it was essentially God showing how the land on the west side of the Jordan would be. Yeah, that would be the west side of the Jordan would be divided amongst the Israelites to show who would go where and who would inherit where. And you would see this more play out when we get to the book, till we get to the future books. You actually see who actually got what. And then we see the leaders of the tribes who were going across, and then we're talking about the towns for the Levites, because the Levites didn't really have an inheritance per se, and so they were the tribe left out, but God was making sure they had their allotted towns. And we also talked about the city of refuge in chapter 35, and the city of refuge is something we talked about briefly in Leviticus and Exodus, but essentially when someone committed a crime, let's say someone was accused of murder, they could find shelter in the city of refuge until their case was tried. That way, they don't have to live in fear of someone killing them. Because, if I'm accused, God forbid, of killing one of Kazi's relatives, which will never happen because Anyway, so it said instead of staying in this town, you could go to the city of refuge where everyone know, okay, it's like Switzerland, neutral. Yep. And you're safe in the city of refuge. Now, if they get to you before the city of refuge, it's fair game. So when people were accused of this or they know they did something, they would immediately head to the city of refuge because that was their safe spot until they actually had their case. And then in verse 36, we ended out with chapter 36, we ended up with the daughters getting the inheritance too. Remember, Zelophehad, his daughter, saying, hey, should our clan name be died out because our father died and didn't leave a son? We deserve an inheritance, or we feel like we are entitled to inheritance. And we see chapter 36 in Numbers, we see them actually getting their inheritance. So, that's the book of Numbers, the travel log, as they went in the desert, the journey through the desert. And it's an interesting book. It's definitely an interesting book. And the theme that we can see in this book is God essentially saying, one, you want it, you're going to get it. And to your detriment at some point in time. Like from the original generation lacking the faith to enter the land of Canaan, saying, "Yo, we look like grasshoppers compared to these giants. Even though the land is flowing milk and honey, we can't overcome them. We can't subdue this land." After God already told you the land is yours, they said, "No, we can't do it." Rose up a large rebellion that all Israelite lost faith. Even though Caleb and Joshua saying, "No, we actually could do this," no one wanted to listen to them. And God said, "Okay, since you guys saying you don't want to conquer it, you don't think you don't have the faith in me to help you conquer it. All right, then, fine. You won't conquer it."
Simple as that.
Simple as that. So now you have to wander around the desert for 40 years. We see, who else? Balaam, you want to curse these people so bad? Go for it. You ain't even going to be able to curse them. But you're going to see the error of your ways, and then you still turn around and do what you want. But it's just interesting because we see how even the stress got to Moses. The lack of faith got to Moses in hitting the rock when he should have talked to the rock. We see it's a book of stories, even though they had a lot of genealogy and counting and even some of the laws in there. But it's actually an interesting book, this book of Numbers. What stood out to you the most?
I think if you take...
I feel like Dora. What was your favorite part?
I think if you get Genesis and you mix that with Exodus and Leviticus, then you get Numbers.
It's like the perfect...
It's a solid blend.
Yeah.
It's a solid blend. And it would make sense because... the whole time and now it kind of makes sense why they wanted to name Exodus the Exodus story, because truthfully, outside of that, it was just like a lot of ceremonial stuff, right? Leviticus was even more ceremonial stuff and Mosaic law. But Numbers, we get to say, "Oh, right, this is what happened with these people." And it just go to show that they make it to Canaan quick. They make it to Canaan quick. But they fumble the bag. It's like God showed them the alley-oop right at the rim, and they still missed the dunk or whatever, right? And then from there, we ain't even really hear no stories in between there, bro, because it's like y'all are dying race from there.
And then one thing just even stood out to me too is like why it's so important to read the Bible for yourself. I remember growing up, I remember hearing people even on TV and stuff saying like the journey from Egypt to Jerusalem should only be about 2 weeks.
But I used to hear the same thing, bro.
So like why did it take these people 40 years to go make this journey? Like it makes no sense. But I'm like, but if you read the Bible and you actually know what happened, you're like, oh no, it took them, they camped at Sinai for a year, but it literally took them no time to get there. The 40 years came as a direct result of their own disobedience.
Yeah, they was there.
But people who never read, because I'm just thinking about young Christians who never even read the book of Numbers, who doesn't even have the desire to read the book of Numbers. Even some adults who just say, oh yeah, I just know they was in the desert for 40 years. They're like, oh, they can't put up any defense to that. But when you actually read, you say, oh no, they was there no time, But their own lack of faith caused them to stay in the desert for 40 years.
And truthfully, they could have got there even quicker, bro, if they wasn't just being confused. Because it's some stuff that they needed to shake off from Egypt, bro, but they didn't get to shake off. If they wasn't complaining or they didn't want to worship this calf and stuff like that. So like, for God to punish you and Moses have to go back up and get the new 10 commandments and stuff like that, that's prolonging everything. But truthfully, God give you all a year, maybe 2 years max to be in the wilderness, XYZ. And now it's time to go to where we promised. But God was trying to go there without y'all because once again, y'all getting in y'all own way. But yeah, like you say, bro, they fumble the bag, bro. Like it take them no time. Like the narrative to me, what I heard growing up, is like it's supposed to take them 2 weeks. But they mumble and complain, so it take them 40 years. And I'm in my mind just like, oh, I guess they just wasn't cooperating with God, so God didn't cooperate with them. But no, God was like, oh, no. And this may be getting Numbers. Y'all keep accusing me of bringing y'all to this desert to kill y'all. So y'all gonna die in the desert. Just plain and simple as that. You understand what I'm saying? And then I think about people like I confuse in Leviticus now. I think about people like Eli, not Eli, what's his name? Aaron's sons. You know what I'm saying? You make the wrong move, it costs you. I think about people like Korah and Miriam who feel like, man, it's like I love God just as much as everybody else. I need to be the guy. You know what I mean? I need to be the person, and as a result, God giving them, He's showing them that y'all ain't righteous, bro. Like God end up punishing y'all for claiming that y'all being too righteous. In this book, it's a lot of people who just ain't understanding and ain't know how to play their role. It's a lot of people who are rebel without a cause, people who making up their own causes, And then there's some people who really just into their own stuff, bro. I don't know. Like, how do we describe Balaam? Balaam, if you did not read, when you get to chapter 31, and he was like, they killed this person and they even killed Balaam. It's like, what Balaam do? You know what I mean? Until you go down and you realize that he was instrumental in being an instrument against God. Not to be redundant, but my thing is, it's a lot of factors working against the Israelites in the book of Numbers. But the Israelites were the biggest factor working against the Israelites in the book of Numbers. And it also shows God's patience and his continual patience. It don't even have to be like this no more, bro. We have already seen the generation before us, where God had to be so patient with them, and where God wasn't patient with them. We seeing God he giving you both. This ain't just a straight, oh, you do this and you getting killed. You see Zelophehad's daughters, they say, man, our daddy died, but he ain't died with Korah. He died from his own sin. So it's showing you his other sins where people was getting killed for too. But then it's also times where people getting spared. We don't see too much of Moses reasoning this time around. He reasoned though. He did do a few reasons. He reasoned for Korah. Korah's talk even more spicy. He's like, never mind, God. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Because truthfully, Moses was the patient. He was the patient advocate, and he was trying to help God. He was petitioning for God to prolong the punishment that these people deserve. But there come a time when God just like, no, I can just give you all straight up what y'all need. You understand what I'm saying? Because all of the surrounding Canaanite families, I giving them what they deserve. And God talked about the Canaanites from Abraham time. My wrath isn't finished with them. Basically, like my anger is going to be kindled with them. And so we see where the Lord has set everything up. It's like volleyball. Somebody flick it up, another person set it. Now it's time for you to spike it, but you don't spike it. You understand what I'm saying? The Lord set up all of your enemies. They nice and ripe to be overtaken. You all too scared. All right, 40 years later, your enemies nice and ripe to be overtaken. But the things that we learned 40 years ago, y'all end up backtracking and disobeying me to the point where you allowing them to weaken your faith and to weaken your people. We see where the people in the book of Numbers, they still have Stockholm syndrome when it comes to Egypt. They have a weird fascination with being pagans. One could argue that this is because they are surrounded by pagans and they're the only people. But there's so much of them and it's so much God. Like the Most High God, he is so big and so present. There's really no need for you all to live this way. But at the end of the day, it's still a desire. It's still like I don't know. It's like a void that they trying to fill, but they trying to fill it with everything except God, who is the missing piece. And now we see where God in. I ain't fighting you. Understand? I ain't fighting you. What else could I do? What else could I do if I take you, a horse, straight to the well, and you do not drink? Instead, you rather sip poison or you rather sip sand on the side. What else could I do? Either I could let you sip the poison and die. You understand? Or I could leave you to make your own decision. You understand? So here we see in the book of Numbers, we see God take on a different shape and form here. And we see the Israelites, they stay consistent. This is a better generation for sure. But there's still a generation that is not above disobeying God and does not have it all together. But here we see God take different parental approaches. Either you could listen to me and no consequence, or you could disobey me and get a consequence. Or even a third option, which the Israelites invented, I could accuse you of giving me this imaginary consequence. And from there, sometimes God just give you grace and let you get what you don't deserve. Sometimes God just give you exactly what you asked for. It's been quite the journey in the wilderness thus far. But as the Israelites make their way back to Canaan, the sad reality is that most of the first generation will not see the promised land, including Moses. Through the power of God, Moses was able to lead and teach the Israelites of his time, and soon it'll be Joshua's turn. Before he passed, he put together another book that summarized his journey. and taught them lessons for the future. But we'll talk more about the book of Deuteronomy on the next episode of A Breath of Fresh Air. Tonight's episode included voice acting by your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz. Remember to go ahead and research on your own in order to get a more firm understanding of tonight's episode. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. You can follow us on social media at A Breath of Fresh Air Pod on Instagram and BOFAPOD on Twitter. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next week.